Hello, our viewers. Welcome. Hello, our viewers. Welcome again to our today's show. Your host is Mr. Tauya Chinama, all the way from Zimbabwe. Our topic today, we are discussing secularism in Zimbabwe, vis-à-vis secularism in other African states. And maybe some people would want to know where Zimbabwe is and a brief about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a landlocked country in the southern Africa, and behind me, what you see is the flag of Zimbabwe, and I think it will do justice to just tell you what it means. Maybe just seeing color graphics, and you see this green represent that Zimbabwe is an agro-based economy. The yellow is representing the mineral richness of the Zimbabwean people. The red party is representing the blood which was split during the struggle for independence. Because Zimbabwe had to fight for 13 good years to get independence from Britain. The black represents the majority of the people in Zimbabwe are blacks. Then the white triangle represents peace. The red star represents the hopes and aspirations of Zimbabwean people, which are somehow Marxist in nature. This yellow bird is called the Zimbabwean bird, or some who know it as the martial eagle. It represents the long and rich history of Zimbabwe. As another country in Africa, we find many people who are in position of authority trying to take their religious beliefs into their office. So in other words, they'll try by all means that their faith, their worldview, their philosophy of living should influence public policy. But we are saying the best way in Zimbabwe is secularism. And we want to reflect how secularism has been faring in Zimbabwe at the moment. Zimbabwe was a promising country, especially around 2015, 2016, 2017. Secularism was somehow rising. This has been shown through the adoption of the new primary and secondary curriculum in Zimbabwe by the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Honorable Lazarus Dokoro, which I think was the best education of Zimbabwe since got independence in 1988. And just maybe to say something from the curriculum, this book I'm holding, this one, is a Zimbabwean curriculum framework for primary and secondary education. There is a subject which they call family, religious, and moral education, or FAREME. And the role of that subject, according to this curriculum framework, it is written, let me quote, open quote, family provides the initial orientation of the learner to the world, and it is imperative to understand the various aspects of the family as an integral part in educating the whole learner. Religion has a pervasive influence in our society, including the life of learners, hence the need for learners to appreciate the diversity and practices of various religion practices in Zimbabwe. Learners explore the linkages between family values, religion, and moral traits. Learning All right. I was just reading what the curriculum framework says to the education. So the education of Zimbabwe, according to the current curriculum, which actually faced a lot of resistance in 2015, when the Minister of Education by that time was accused of um, trying to bring in some alien religions to Zimbabwe, because majority of people in Zimbabwe are Christians, and the image they have about other religions, especially Islam, is very bad, because they know little about the good side of Islam and other religions, because they only know the other side, where they are shown probably by different Western media houses, where they show Islam as a terrorist religion. Yes, it is a fact that some of the Muslim fundamentalists are into terrorism. It's a fact, we can't deny that. But that is not the fullness of Islam. So that's the problem we have. So, maybe what is secularism to start with? Secularism is a way of doing things without a bias towards one religion. In other words, secularism tries to say, let all religions be given equal treatment. In other words, secularism is the simple implementation of the Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says that freedom of thought, conscience, and religion all belief. So we have seen this has been a problem in Zimbabwe. Remember, when the current president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, President Emerson Mnangagwa, when he came into power in 2018, he had a statement which he was saying, the voice of the people is the voice of God. Somehow, he was taking his faith to influence the public affairs. And the main opposition leader, who was the president of the MDC Alliance by that time, who is now the president of the Triple C, would also have the statement, which is somehow theocratic too. We were saying, "Hush, God is in it," and we see that religion is being tried to be mingled with the art of governance. So, where does this leave people who are non-religious, who actually probably sometimes might feel offended, because people who are non-religious, they come in different shapes. We have people who are agnostic, we have people who are atheists, we have people who are apatheists. Of course, apatheists don't have a problem with much, because they prefer understanding and than judgment, but they are non-religious too. And also, even among atheists, we have some who are somehow militant and radical, who will be choosing confrontational approach towards challenging the influence of religion in public affairs. But as a country, yes, we tried to improve in 2015, 2016, and 2017. But it seems that vigor, that longing, is something time. And I would actually encourage people who are into active politics, of which I am one of them, although not having significant impact at the moment, that let us choose secularism. In other words, let us graduate from praising democracy. Let us go for secularist. This word is not that new. It was once said in 2010 by a certain scholar, a certain professor, who is also a philosopher from Ireland. Currently, I think he's in the United States. His friend, some I don't remember. He talked of a seculocracy, which means a governance based on secularism. So that's why. So that is what I'm suggesting Zimbabwe to take, since it's all symbols, it's all national symbols, like the flag, which is actually behind me, and I explained to everyone what is meant by those stripes and their colors, and that star and that bird and that white triangle. So now I think you have somehow the knowledge, and I explained where Zimbabwe is found in the southern Africa. And although the Zimbabwean constitution is in its preamble, it mentions the Yahweh, the Christian deity, yes, but I can't agree with people if they say Zimbabwe is a theocracy. It is not a theocracy. It's a secular republic. So it has to be governed by secular values. So we have a problem of the rule of law. People don't follow rule of law, not only when the trampling on people's rights, but some religious people, they think that they have the right to impose their beliefs on all Zimbabweans, mainly on account that he or she is a member of parliament, or is a minister, or is a president. So in 2015, 2016, 2017, which I also talked about, we have seen also people like Shingai Rupatandoro, one of the prominent humanists in Zimbabwe, was also appointed by the then government of Robert Gabriel Mugabe to be on the censorship board, which I think it was a win for the humanists in Zimbabwe. It was a win for secularism in Zimbabwe. So, and another problem in Zimbabwe we have, why secularism is not flourishing. People who are secularists are not opening up. I have known a lot of non-religious people since 2017. Some of them now went into hiding. Why? They faced some consequences of openly being non-religious, because there are consequences to it. Being honest is a good thing, but in an extremely religious country, it has consequences. You might lose job opportunities. You might lose some economic opportunities. You might even lose some friends. You'll be ostracized. Though you will be understanding those people, they'll make sure that they'll crush you. And as we know, according to John Stuart Mill, one of the British philosophers, he once said, democracy doesn't solve the problem of tyranny, but there's tyranny of majority. So secularists in Zimbabwe, they suffer the tyranny of majority. Just because majority believes in a particular way of doing things, so they suffer because of that. And what we know, what is right or what is good, doesn't always follow the majority. That's not it. That's not it. We can take, for example, the issue of at some point the whole world thought that everything revolves around the earth, which was used to be called the geocentric theory. But now we have all agreed, and I think it won't change anytime soon. But as someone who is advocates for science, I'm sure it might change. But now we know that the center of everything in our universe is the sun. So we have moved from geocentric theory to heliocentric theory. And the latest results of the census in Zimbabwe, actually, which was carried out last year, had shown that about 10% of the Zimbabwean population that are somehow not associated with any religion. So probably majority of them are non-religious, and sometimes in Zimbabwe, even those who are traditionalists, they decide sometimes not to mention their religion. They decide to say, no, we don't have a religion. So That's a brief about secularism in Zimbabwe, how it was hopeful in the years 2015, 16, 17, but now it's somehow dying down, where majority of politicians would actually take certain religious values. Towards the elections here in Zimbabwe, you find politicians going around from one church to another. Why? Of course, because democracy rewards the person who has the majority. So majority of people are religious in Zimbabwe and particularly are Christians. So they would actually need to please those people so that they can get votes. So that is the dilemma we have here in Zimbabwe. The constitution makes it possible for secularism to be implemented. Educational curriculum framework makes it possible for secularism to flourish, but it seems people are not conscious of what is secularism, which I think as people who are non-religious in Zimbabwe, we have a lot to do. We have a lot in terms of conscientizing, in terms of educating people about the benefits of secularism, because secularism has a lot of positive implications. Unfortunately, people they think of secularism in terms of what do they reject, because secularists are well known of rejecting uh, a number of religious values, a number of religious doctrines, such as the existence of a deity, the idea of a god, and the secularists normally say to be religious is irrational. Well, it is partly true, but as secularists, I think at some point we have to adopt what we call a phenomenological approach towards studying religion, because some people, their values are deeply rooted in their faith. So I think we have to study their faith, understand it, and know how best we can introduce secularism to them. What do I mean by phenomenology? Phenomenology is that process which we use for research when we suspend what we already know about a particular religion, or we do what we call a theoretical suspension. Then we try to be in the foot of those religious people. We try to understand what it means, because sometimes when we just attack uh, the religious people without taking time to understand them, sometimes we risk them losing something without offering them something, because life hates a vacuum. We don't want the upsurge of suicide. There are some people who feel that if I leave my religion today, my life will be meaningless. So we should actually mold a, the alternative in a way which is marketable. And that alternative, it has to be marketable. We don't have to be confrontational. We have to dialogue. We know that majority of people in Zimbabwe are religious, or they are Christian, or whatever religion they are. Particularly for being Christian, we are Christians in Zimbabwe by colonization. If we were to be colonized by a Middle East country, majority of us in Zimbabwe would be Muslim. If we were to be colonized by Caribbean islands, majority of us would be Rastafarian. If we were to be colonized by India, majority of us will be Hindus. If we were to be colonized by China, majority of us will be Buddhists. And it is very difficult for some people to understand, even when you explain to them that people are born without religion, but society uh, put people into certain boxes. So that's how religion is impact in Zimbabwe, as I have explained. Unfortunately, I saw I had a brother who had just entered the studio. Unfortunately, he dropped. I was thinking of giving him some time to
No, I'm
to
here.
say
No,
something.
no, I'm just here. I'm just here. I was just in the background, I think.
All right, welcome, Kato. I was only seeing my face on the screen. Welcome, Kato. I'm giving you some 3 or 4 minutes to just say something. Then I proceed, because I felt it is injustice. It is doing injustice to let you listen and listen and listen without welcoming you into the studio. Over to you, my brother.
Thank you so much, brother. Comrade brother Tauya Chinama. Tauya Chinama, of course, is from Zambia. For our viewers watching my page,
No, I'm from Zimbabwe. You always give me a new country. Kato, brother.
I think I love Zimbabwe more than Zambia. That I always talk about Zambia more. But yes, Tauya Chinama is a Zimbabwean. Of course, where Mugabe comes from is where Tauya comes from. Now that matter is settled. Tauya Chinama may be a brother of Robert Mugabe, maybe in that way. So in that way, we are going to take that matter very seriously now. But of course, Tauya Chinama is a Zimbabwean philosopher, as I always say, and a thinker and a humanist, and someone who has read these things to do with religion. And of course, here today we are discussing secularism. My name is Katom Kasa, I'm a Ugandan, of course, who is interested in issues humanism, and I'm going to be here to share with you a few things. But now, I want to ask Comrade Tauya Chinama just a few things for the sake of our viewers, because people tend to confuse a few things. One, if you are going to discuss this subject, you need to define what secularism is so that the public understands. And basically, by defining it, you'll be answering questions such as, does secularism mean that does it equate to atheism? Does it equate to humanism? People are going to be asking those questions because necessarily it may not be exactly the same, but I want to hear your views. Now, number two, people are going to ask you questions like, because we're discussing countries, do we say that a secular state doesn't have religious elements in it, doesn't have religious influence in it? Because a secular state is automatically not a theocracy. That is out of the question. A secular state is not a theocracy. You cannot call countries like Saudi Arabia a secular state. They are not a secular state. There are countries which we know that are completely theocracies, where they are ruled based on Quranic principles. In Africa, I'm yet to know a country ruled based on a Bible or religious sentiments or Quranic teachings. I'm yet to know that completely. But when you look at North Africa, Maghreb, you are going to find out that much of it is influenced by what religion says. Now, a question comes, and they ask you, does it mean when someone, first of all, what is secularism? Number two, how do you distinguish secularism from atheism and humanism? Number three, when you look at Zimbabwe, I know Zimbabwe strictly has a constitution which you say is secular. Because when you go with the definition, the constitution may be secular. But now, when you look at Zimbabwe, in practice, do we say it is secular? In a practice or on paper, it's secular. So those are the questions. About 4 questions I want you to think about. Dream about them with them, and then give us a way forward as listeners and my viewers and our viewers on the platform.
Well, thank you very much. Some of the things you just raised are before, like definition of secularism and the issue of whether Zimbabwe is a secularist state in practice or not. In practice, Zimbabwe is not a secular, but it's legal instrument, like the constitution out that it's secular country, it's education curriculum framework that is somehow secular. So
your network is bad. Your network is completely bad, brother. Brother, you are breaking.
But I'm sure the voice here changes.
I don't know whether the producer is not sing it, but
I want to read the. I wanted to. This document I'm holding, this document I'm holding is the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The preamble of this Constitution mentions. I want to read it out. It is written, "We, the people of Zimbabwe, united in our diversity by our common desire for freedom, justice, and equality, and our heroic resistance to colonialism, racism, and for all forms of domination and oppression, exalting and extolling the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives during the Chimurenga, Umvukela, and the national liberation struggles, honoring our forebears and compatriots who toiled for the progress of our country, recognizing the need to entrench democracy, good, transparent, and accountable government, and the rule of law. Reaffirming our commitment to upholding and defending fundamental human rights and freedoms, acknowledging the richness of our natural resources, celebrating the vibrance of our traditions and cultures, determined to overcome all challenges and obstacles that impede our progress, cherishing freedom, equality, peace, justice, tolerance, prosperity, and patriotism in search of new frontiers under a common destiny, acknowledging the supremacy of Almighty God, in whose hands our future lies, resolved by the tenets of this Constitution to commit ourselves to build a united, just, and prosperous nation, founded on the values of transparency, equality, freedom, fairness, honesty, and the dignity of hard work, and imploring the guidance and support of Almighty God, hereby make this Constitution and commit ourselves to it as the fundamental law of our beloved land. This is the preamble of the Zimbabwean Constitution, which I was just reading. You asked also a question: does it mean that a secular state has no religion? A secular state respects everyone's worldview. A secular state doesn't eliminate religion, but it only insists on the separation between state and church. It has to be clear: this is state, this is church. The government shouldn't be look like a religious board. The government should look like a church, which means people are allowed to do whatever. That's why the Constitution of Zimbabwe preamble, you hear at some point there is where it is mentioning the Almighty God, which means it's taking into cognizance that even if it is a secular state according to the Constitution, it still respects people regardless of their religion. But there is a problem here in Zimbabwe, as I said earlier on. The Minister of Primary and Secondary Education in 2015 faced a lot of problem from parents who were actually Christians, who actually denied to say what they call, they introduced the pledge, national pledge. National pledge was meant to substitute the Lord's Prayer. We know the Lord's Prayer is a Christian prayer, and parents, they were against it. And some, they actually went to courts of law. In April 2016, a parent, a father of three, a Pentecostal, went to the Constitutional Court in April 2016, and the judgment was made on 28 December 2020. So the pledge was said by the Constitutional Court, it is unconstitutional because it is against parental rights and the freedom of conscience for children. But I don't agree with that judgment. I think those who were on the bench, they just used the pressure which was in the media. But I don't think there was anything wrong by moving the state towards being more secular than religious. Unfortunately, I didn't have the capacity to challenge it. I hope I will have the capacity to challenge it. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe if I was a lawyer like Kato, probably I was going to do something. But probably for that reason, I think of lately, I think I should also go and do law so that I can challenge some of these things. Yes, I can challenge from a philosophical point of view, but I think I have to be taking government to court on this. I have to be taking these churches to court, and I have to challenge it. Unfortunately, it will take some time, but I hope. Unfortunately, we don't have so far lawyers who are passionate about pushing secularism. Lawyers who also are passionate about pushing people to be more tolerant. So that's the danger we have. And I've been talking about Zimbabwe. Let me talk a little bit about South Africa. I think South Africa and the Southern Africa is one of the most secular countries, because what they do when they are starting an event, they don't normally prefer a prayer like what we do in Zimbabwe. They actually prefer a moment of silence, or they say, all religions present, can you come and say something? Because the goodness about moment of silence when you are starting an event, it encompasses everyone. Everyone feels part and parcel. In the moment, in that short moment of silence, a Christian would say whatever he want to say, a Muslim would say whatever, a Jewish whatever. But in this is what I'm commenting. This is from the Southern African point of view, and I think Botswana is also a bit more secular, and they actually decriminalize homosexuality. In some countries, many countries in Africa, homosexuality is criminalized. And in Angola, I think they're working on that. In Zimbabwe, the president of the country, I think, is working on that, because whenever he is asked about that, he normally tries to dodge the question. He asks these questions. When our presidents from Africa, when they go to the Western world, one of the questions which they will never miss, what's your take on homosexuality? So they try to dodge it and whatsoever, because you can answer the whatever way when you are in the Western world. But when you come back home, you lose support, because people are not prepared to accept it. So in South Africa, it has been decriminalized, and I think in Mozambique they're working on it. But it's a pity. I have nothing against the country of my brother Kato. Kato, I want you to say a little bit about Uganda and secularism. And your president criminalized extremely criminalized homosexuality. Over to you, my brother.
Let me first sip a bit so that I can tell you about my country, Uganda. Okay. Uganda is a very interesting case study. It's a country ruled by many conmen. Conmen who were supposed to be leaders, but conmen really who manipulate people to get what they want. So I'm going to tell you about Uganda. I'm going to tell you about Kenya and a few other countries. I want to thank you so much for your input. Of course, I'm very interested in learning about Zimbabwe, and I'm here, of course, learning. And I agree with you. When I look at South Africa, I was betrayed by Zambia. That's why I think of Zambia almost every time, because Zambia betrayed me. Why? Zambia had Kaunda. In 1962, 1964, the man had made Zambia a humanist state and had put it on a path for secularism in a proper way. Zambia is the only country in Africa that claims to be a Christian state. Anyone can remind me on that. Officially, they put it there in their damn constitution. A country that was built on humanistic principles. So Zambia betrayed me. That's why I keep on giving all South Africans Zambia, 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 Zambia. You're all Zambians in a way. But having said that, of course, Zimbabwe was a mode at one point. But of course, when you look at Mugabe, also Mugabe came, and to me, Mugabe was a disaster at one point. He began so well, but somehow I think Mugabe lost it somehow, in my view. And of course, his too much Pan-Africanism also gave away lots of good things about him. But I think also during Mugabe's time, though he talked about God once in a while, he was more secular in my view. He was a bit more secular in my view, my conservative view. So Zimbabwe to me is more secular than Zambia in my view. But again, when I look at the southern part of Africa, I always sing out South Africa as a model. I love South Africa. Unfortunately, I haven't been in South Africa, but I want to go to South Africa anytime soon. My friend Linda died without going to South Africa, and I wanted to go to South Africa because I look forward to it. South Africa is a model for secularism. A model for secularism. Though they have their own weaknesses here and there, but at least South Africa has clearly defined the extent where the religious people end and where freedoms of everyone starts. It is in South Africa that homosexuals can actually get married. Secularism briefly means that, in my conservative view, that you don't impose your wish on public affairs of a people. You don't impose your ideologies on public affairs over people. It's not only about religion. It's about so many other things, but you don't impose them on the free will of the people. You let people be. For example, look what France, in recent years, about 3 years ago, was trying to bring out a law that would ban Muslim women from putting on the burqa, the veil. Now, a question comes, is this good or is this bad? If you are saying you are a free country and a Muslim woman wants to put on her veil, why do you stop her? Why do you stop a Muslim student to go to a school with her? You see, it becomes a challenge now of debate. If you think you are secular and you are free, why don't you allow everyone to behave the way they want? Me, I want to circumcise. Are you going to stop me from circumcising? Me, I want to put on the turban, whatever they call it, that Muslim cape. Are you going to stop me from putting it on? So secularism is going to give you freedoms also. Like, for example, the freedom to abort. Only a secular state is going to give it. But look at America. America has states that actually refuse you from doing that. America has states that refuse you from being homosexual and get married. Anyone can Google this. Yet we say America is a democracy. Yet we say America is secular. But the question is, to what extent are these countries that we think are secular? So even secularism itself has its own limitations, has its own challenges. Look at the UK, for example. To what extent is this country, is this kingdom secular? When you have cardinals, when you have bishops in parliament. You know that, my friend, you as our priest in humanism now, you know this, that in the UK, basically they have priests, bishops who are parliamentarians. I'm using that parliamentarian conservatively. People who go and make laws, but these are religious people. Now, if someone asks a question, is this council secular? To what extent is the UK secular? When Uganda doesn't have bishops, directly represented in parliament, yet the UK, where Uganda borrows from, is having bishops represented in parliament. Now, you can imagine, someone begins asking you, secularism is a very hard topic, my brother. Someone begins asking you, to what extent are these countries secular? When one state doesn't allow you to have a homosexual marriage, another state accepts homosexuality, another state doesn't allow burqa, another state, doesn't allow abortion. So it becomes a problem. Even in Europe, secularism is a very big problem. Now, going back to Africa, for our viewers to briefly understand this properly from the context of Africa now, look at Africa, look at Uganda. Uganda is a failed state. My friend, if Zimbabwe is not failed, my country, Uganda, is a failed state. In all aspects, it is failed. Economically, it is failed. It has gone back to banana republic. In fact, it's no longer banana republic because even the bananas are not there that are enough. They have been eaten by wilt and all that. Roads are bad. Leadership is corrupt. Everything is corrupt. But even when it comes to religion, you have a parliament which has a constitution that is secular. Our constitution is so clear about religion. The third schedule, the fourth schedule, it's all clear. Actually, from the first schedule, it's clear that we are going to have a separation between church, mosque, religion, and the state. What happens in practice? What happens in practice that the president's wife, the first lady, is a pastor. And the first daughter, as they want to be called, is a pastor. Now, they get the business of pastorhood to interfere into the politics of the country. Do you know that in Uganda we have what we call national days of prayers? Now, someone wakes up and tells us that today we are going to pray so that corruption can go away. We are simply going to pray corruption can go away. Don't act anything, don't do anything else. Simply go and pray. We have a special day for prayers to pray for corruption to go away. That is my country. Number two, in Uganda, you have prayers where people come to pray so that bad things can stop happening in the country. For example, if there are bad rains which come and destroy people's farms, if there is a famine coming up, if there is a war coming up, so people are going to, the first lady is going to call for prayer and say, we are going to have a national day of prayer. And they will declare it within a week. And tomorrow, all of you are not going anywhere to work, but in church and at a certain ground, Korolo, as they call it, to go and pray. National Day of Prayers. To pray for what? Corruption. To pray for what? Famine. To pray for what? Diseases. To pray for what? Students going to sit exams. Now, if this is not a failed state, what else can it be? That to fight poverty, you must have a national day of prayer. That to fight corruption, where even the president is corrupt, you must have a national day of prayer. Where every minister is corrupt, you must have a national day of prayer. But the people who are praying, are they corrupt? The people who are praying, who they call to pray, even the priests, the bishops are corrupt, the pastors are corrupt, they are thieves, they are doing everything scandalous, but they are the guys who come to pray for you. And after prayer, what happens? The same presidents give them money in an envelope. An envelope comes in and then give them money. Now, the same president came to a prayer to stop corruption, and the same president is corrupting the people who have come for prayers by giving them money in an envelope. Now, which type of country is this one? This country is failed state, Uganda. It's a failed state because it doesn't promote democracy. First of all, look at a country where parliamentarians, before they do anything, they first make prayers. Parliamentarians. Now, they don't mind that Kato Mukasa, who is the parliamentarian, is an atheist. They don't respect me. A speaker of parliament is going to say, let us have prayers. Is this a mass? Is this a church? Is it a mosque? Now, if you're going to have prayers, it means that the imam must have theirs because they are Muslims. It means that the Orthodox must have theirs, but they are going to pray prayers to a Jesus because everyone must be a Christian. Now, which type of state is this one? Confused. Now, look at laws which are passed in Uganda. You have a law such as the anti-homosexuality law, which was passed in March this year, signed into law in May. The law is strictly passed by people who are saying, our God does not accept homosexuality. Our God. Not reason, not logic. Our God. And they are going to say you, this country is a country of God. For God and my country is our motto. You can imagine a country with such a stupid motto. For God and my country is a very stupid motto. But that's the motto of my country. That for God and my country. Which God? Is it the Zeus God of the Greek? Is it the Roman God? Apollos? Is this the Greek God? Is this the Egyptian God? Or the Baganda God? Or the Banyankole God? Or the Batoro God? Which God? We have 4,800 gods now. Which God are we talking about? And we call it for God and my what? But we have Muslims, we have all these confused sects, but our motto is for God and our. Now, you ask yourself, is this a secular country or what? Because the motto itself says, for us, we are for God. They are passing all stupid laws to criminalize homosexuality, to gag women. Women cannot control their bodies. A woman cannot do abortion in Uganda unless she has HIV, unless her life is in danger, unless sanctioned by a medical doctor on health grounds. Now, abortion becomes illegal. I know doctors whose licenses have been cancelled. Why? Because they helped women do abort. You know, it's a situation. Let me take you to Kenya, just 1 minute. Kenya is another hopeless country. Kenya is another very hopeless country. Now, let me tell you about this hopeless country. And I know Kenyans are watching me. Let me tell them about their hopeless country.
I hope you are not their son-in-law.
Yeah, I have. You know, don't talk about that. They are going to take away their. Now, let me tell you how hopeless Kenya is. Now, leave my hopeless country, Uganda. Let's talk about hopeless country, Kenya. Now, they have a new president who's hardly 2 years. They have a new president who is hardly 2 years in power. But this hopeless president has got a wife who is also a pastor, and this wife has made State House of Kenya a church. Just imagine the state house of Zimbabwe to become a church where people come and do their prayers in a state house. In a state house. Now, state house becomes a branch of a church. And these guys are too corrupt. The president has been proven, just in a few months has been in power, is corrupt. Everything's going wrong. But remember, he's a prayerful president. I call him a pastor. But whatever he's doing, he's the only president in East Africa so far who has over-traveled in the last 1 year. Check records. He's always on the plane moving. And whenever he's moving, the government of Kenya is paying him money. Look, anyone can Google it. What Ruto has done, the amount of money they have spent on President Ruto of Kenya in just 1 year is much. Just one thing, travels. So how do you define corruption, my friend? They ask him, tell us, you have been going outside almost every month you on a plane with an entourage of people. You are spending money. How much has Kenya earned? He says, let us pray. Let us pray. So you see how confused these African governments are. Now, talk about Burundi. Rwanda is a bit unexceptional. Talk about Tanzania, where we have good woman Saliu. Now, she's being influenced by her Islamic teachings. She was good at the beginning, but when you look at how she's handling the country, she's handling it from an Hajat kind of thinking. You know Hajats? She's married to a certain Haji, the president of Tanzania. Now, when you look at her policies, the way she gives speech, the other time she was talking about girls who are pregnant, not going back to school. This is a president who is a woman. Who is a woman, but takes pregnancy for teenagers as a crime. This is a president for whatever sake. I was going to say for heaven's sake, but heaven is here. You know? Now, in brief, my brother, secularism is a hard thing to define. That on paper, our states are called secular states. But in practice, we have a parliament of priests in Uganda. We have, at one time, we had reverend fathers who were elected on merit to go to parliament. One of them was a reverend who taught me in primary, Reverend Bakalova Mukasa, became a parliamentarian for 2 terms. Now we have reverends, you have fathers, Catholic fathers in the parliament of Uganda, but on merit, not that they are religious, but they left the church, went direct into an election, and because people respected them, because remember, Tauya, if you were a priest, you have been serving for 20 years in your constituency, do you think people cannot give you a vote? Because people respect you. How can they refuse to give God's child a vote? You see? So when a priest stands, automatically they always win. Why? They have intimidated almost everyone. Now, it becomes hard to separate whether we are voting for our church Catholicism or Protestantism, or whether we are voting for a person to become our MP. The same applies to those who are Muslims. I'm telling you, lastly, that in Uganda, the president, whenever he's allocating positions, ministerial positions in Uganda, because he's a confused man, he must make sure that he gives allocation for Catholics. He's a Protestant himself. But his deputy must be a Catholic. Why? Because the Catholics are going to fight if he doesn't give him the position. Sometimes, until recently, the prime minister was always a Muslim. The Muslim could say, that is our position. That is our... Now, which type of stupidity is this one? Now, you don't give people on merit. You are giving them positions in your cabinet according to 1, tribe. Number 2, religion. You see? Not merit, not skill, tribe, religion. Religion, tribe. And you hear them complaining. For us, the Muslims, this time you got few slots. Then I ask them, me, I'm a humanist. I'm an atheist. How many slots was I given in my docket as an unbeliever? None. Now, it means that even when this secular state claims to be secular, me, a humanist, is neglected. I cannot have a secular marriage in Uganda. I mean, that's wrong. I can't have a humanist marriage in Uganda. Because up to now, we are still lobbying the parliament to accept us. But you can have a secular marriage in Uganda. So, briefly, Africa, full of confusion. Secularism, very hard definition to give. Because even in Europe, they pretend to be secular. They are not. They are half-half. So, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. I'm done for now.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Having said whatever we've said, I'm just here in Zimbabwe, the main opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, has even been condemned by even some of his followers for always posting verses. Those people that are saying, please do something practical. So at some point, we see people that are eager to go secular, but I think it's a call to all humanists, it's a call to all non-religious people to be actively involved in politics. Because if you are not actively involved in politics, who do you think can push the secularist agenda? Who do you think can push the non-religious way of doing things? Because there are a lot of benefits when a state is truly secular. When a state is truly secular, it respects people, not on account of their skin color, not on account of their region of origin, not on account of their religious belief. But if a state is truly secular, it respects everyone. So secularism is a win for all, even for the religious people, because when the state is truly secular, a Muslim will be safe from being attacked by a Christian will be safe from being attacked by a Muslim. So this is for the safety of all. So secularism is a midway for all, and people should know that.
Yes, they should know that. I know you are getting or because of the internet. Yeah, you are right. Chinama is very right. We all want to have secular governments in Africa. We all want to have secular states in Africa. Why? Because secularism helps everyone. In a secular state, a Catholic is saved, a Muslim is safe, a non-believer is safe, a Christian is safe. Anyone is safe in a secular state. I can tell you, I cannot love to go to Saudi Arabia. I don't even want to go there. How do I want to go to Iran? To do what? How do I want to go to Indonesia? To do what? Because when I tell them I don't believe in their gods, they are going to behead me. They are going to behead me. Why do I want to go in
My
Saudi?
brother?
Yes, brother.
All right. So someone was disturbing it, so my network was falling. So I think I've said secularism is a win for us all, and we should actually embrace it all, whether you're religious, you're non-religious, or you're whatever. It's a win for all. It's somehow a step towards a more civilized world. I would encourage humanists, non-religious, atheists.
Yes, thank you so much, brother. I know there's interruption in the internet, but of course, Chinama Tauya is a Zimbabwean philosopher, a humanist leader, and of course, has been giving us his take on secularism in Zimbabwe. And he has been saying that the only way forward for the world, not Africa, Chinama. Africa is not only in equation. My equation is the world needs secularism, Chinama, my brother. The world needs secularism. I'm a secularist. I root for secularism. If America was secularist, they would have been a better country. They are not. They're on paper, but somehow it's a mixture of secularism and religiosity. I don't even think many of these countries in Europe are secularists. But those who are secularists, look at them. Let me give you examples of what I think are secular countries in the world. Look at Denmark. Our viewers, look at Denmark. Look at Norway. Not but practically. Look at Iceland. Look at Denmark. Look at Norway. Look at Netherlands. Look at Finland. Look at those countries. Then compare them with UK, US, and France. Compare them with those ones now. And see the progress and happiness, the word happy index of the people. Look at the happy index of people. Go and Google it. Anyone, I'm talking about the viewers now. Go and look at the level of happiness of the people in the countries I've mentioned, vis-a-vis the three I've mentioned. You will see why secularism is so important in governance. Now, Africa is worse.
Indeed, I agree with you.
Africa is worse.
When it comes to governance,
for us, we are worse off. Now, back to you, my brother. For us, we are not sure.
when it comes to secularism, the countries I admire is those countries you've just mentioned, those from the Nordic region, that actually doing well. And having said that, I was talking about Zimbabwe. I have some passion towards Zimbabwe, of course. Our next show, maybe for the sake of our viewers who would want maybe to anticipate something, our next show will be actually on. Can I say it, Kat?
Yes, please, Council. Go ahead, my
you
brother. Go ahead.
You'll be surprised what our next show will be on next Sunday. Next Sunday we'll be talking about US sanctions on Zimbabwe. So we want to we want to see, is it justified? Is US not reducing Zimbabwe to one of its states? Because the sanctions of US on Zimbabwe is a law called Desidera, which means the American people made a law which applies to the Zimbabwean people without consulting the Zimbabwean people. So we shall talk about all those things. Is it justifiable?
I'm giving you my
and
conclusion
we shall
before
also
the show starts. I'm giving my conclusion before the show starts. That is imperialism. That is neo-imperialism. To keep sanctioning countries even when their leaders have left. That is neo-imperialism. That's crippling an economy. I don't agree with such sanctions, and I will speak so on Sunday.
Yeah, of course. So we will be talking about sanctions on Zimbabwe, and we will also talk about the sovereignty of Zimbabwe, because there are illegal sanctions. Yes, personally, I don't agree with the current government of Zimbabwe. Yes, they are doing a lot of evil, but does the sanctions justifiable? Let us meet next Sunday. We discuss sanctions. We discuss the prefects of the world, United States. Thank you very much. It's from you.
Thank you so much.
Tauya Chinama.
Bye-bye, Katomukasa signing out. Thank you so much.